Mia's heart raced as Tony's cold eyes locked onto the bruise she'd been hiding for months. But what happened next would change everything. Tony wasn't just a mafia boss. He was about to make her abuser disappear. The question is, would Mia survive the aftermath? Mia pulls her arm back fast, tugging the fabric down with her free hand, but it is too late. Tony Romano sees it. His jaw tightens. The fork in his hand pauses halfway to his mouth, suspended in the warm air that smells like garlic and red wine. Around him, the noise of Venezia Trattoria hums, glasses clinking, laughter bouncing off brick walls, the scrape of chairs on worn wood floors. But at his corner table, the world narrows to the bruise on her wrist and the way she pretends it does not exist. She keeps her face calm, professional, eyes lowered as she arranges the silverware that does not need arranging. Her name tag says Maya L. And her hands move with practiced efficiency, fingers long and steady despite the tremor she hides in her shoulders. She has learned how to carry weight without letting people see it bend her. Tony leans back in his chair, the leather creaking under his frame. He does not speak yet. He watches. The men at nearby tables know that look, the one that means he is measuring something, deciding how much it costs and whether it is worth the price. Across from him, his associate Frankie shifts in his seat, sensing the change in temperature, but smart enough not to ask. What do you do when the most dangerous man in the room notices the one thing you have been trying to hide from everyone? Mia turns to leave, but Tony's voice stops her before she can take a full step. Wait. The word is not loud, but it cuts through the noise like a knife through butter. She freezes, her spine going stiff. Every instinct tells her to keep walking, but her feet betray her. She turns back, eyes finally meeting his. Tony's face is unreadable. He has the kind of features that could belong to a priest or a killer. Sharp cheekbones and dark eyes that never blink when they should. His suit is pressed, his tie perfectly knotted, his silver cufflinks catching the low light from the Edison bulbs hanging overhead. Everything about him screams control. But right now, something flickers behind that control. A crack, barely visible. "You okay?" he asks, and the question lands heavier than it should. It is simple, common, the kind of thing anyone might ask. But coming from Tony Romano, it feels loaded with meaning she cannot decode. Frankie glances between them, confused, then picks up his wine glass and pretends to study the label. Mia's throat tightens. She forces a smile, the kind she has perfected over years of saying she is fine when she is not. "Yes, Mr. Romano, just clumsy, bumped into a door." The lie comes easy, automatic. She has said it before to coworkers, to strangers, to herself in the mirror. Tony does not smile back. He sets his fork down slowly, deliberately, the metal ringing soft against the porcelain. His fingers drum once on the table, then stop. The silence stretches, thick and uncomfortable, until it feels like the whole restaurant is holding its breath, even though no one else is paying attention. "A door," he repeats, voice flat. It is not a question. It is a challenge. Mia's pulse jumps in her neck. She nods, gripping her serving tray tighter, the metal edge digging into her palms. She can feel sweat starting to bead at her hairline, despite the cool October air slipping through the cracked window near the kitchen. Tony leans forward, elbows on the table, hands clasped. When he speaks again, his voice drops lower, meant only for her. "Let me tell you something about doors, Mia. Doors don't leave marks like that. Doors don't bruise in patterns. Doors don't make a woman flinch when someone raises their hand too fast." Her breath catches. She had flinched earlier when Frankie reached for the breadbasket. She thought no one noticed. She was wrong. Tony's eyes bore into hers, and for the first time since she started working here 3 weeks ago, she realizes that Antonio Romano, the man people whisper about in corners, the man whose name makes cops look the other way, sees her, not as a waitress, not as background, as a person, as someone in trouble. "Sit down," he says, gesturing to the empty chair beside Frankie. It is not a request. Frankie's eyes widen and he starts to protest. but one look from Tony shuts him up. He stands, mumbles something about checking on the delivery out back, and disappears toward the kitchen. Mia's heart hammers against her ribs. Sitting down means admitting something. It means crossing a line she swore she would never cross again, letting someone in, letting someone ask questions she does not want to answer. But standing here under the weight of Tony's stare, with the bruise on her wrist burning like a brand, she realizes she might not have a choice. She sits. The chair feels too small, too close. Tony does not look away. He does not rush her. He just waits, patient as a wolf watching prey decide which way to run. "Who did that to you?" he asks. And the question is so direct, so stripped of anything except raw curiosity and something that might be anger, that Mia's carefully built walls start to crack. If the most powerful man you ever met asked you to name the person who hurt you, knowing he could make them disappear by morning, would you tell him the truth, or would you protect the monster you ran away from? The rain had been falling for 2 days straight when Mia first stepped off the Greyhound bus at Port Authority, her duffel bag slung over one shoulder, and her little brother Marcus clutching her free hand like a lifeline. New York City did not welcome them, it swallowed them. The noise hit first. Car horns, sirens, a man yelling in Spanish at someone who yelled back in a language Mia did not recognize. Then the smell. Hot garbage mixed with street vendor pretzels and the damp wool of too many bodies packed into too little space. Marcus pressed closer to her side, his 12-year-old frame small for his age, eyes wide and darting. "We gonna be okay, Mia?" he asked, voice barely audible over the chaos. She looked down at him, at his too-thin jacket and the sneakers with holes near the toes, and lied the way she had been lying for months. "Yeah, baby. We gonna be just fine." They had left New Orleans 3 weeks earlier with $800, 2 bags, and a promise to themselves that they would never go back. Mia's ex, Dion, had made sure the last 2 years of her life were a masterclass in fear. At first, it was small things, controlling who she talked to, checking her phone, telling her the skirt she wore was too short or her smile at the cashier was too friendly. Then it escalated. A shove here, a slap there, then fists, then worse. The night she finally left, Dion had put her through the living room wall. Marcus had called 911 and the cops came, but Dion knew how to talk to police. He smiled, apologized, said it was a misunderstanding, said Mia tripped, and because he had a clean record and a steady job at the plant, they believed him. They always believed him. So Mia waited until he passed out drunk 2 nights later, packed what little they had, and walked out the door with Marcus. They took a bus to Baton Rouge, then another to Atlanta, then another to Richmond, zigzagging north until they finally landed in New York, a city big enough to disappear in. But disappearing costs money, and money meant work. For the first week, they stayed in a shelter in the Bronx, sharing a bunk bed with another woman and her toddler. Mia spent her days walking the streets, filling out applications at diners, grocery stores, dry cleaners, anywhere that might hire someone without references or a permanent address. Then she saw the Help Wanted sign in the window of Venezia Trattoria in Brooklyn. The place looked old, the kind of old that meant history instead of decay. Red brick, green awning, a painted sign with gold letters that had faded but still held their elegance. Inside, the smell of roasted tomatoes and fresh bread made her stomach clench with hunger. A short man with graying hair and an apron stained with marinara sauce greeted her at the door. "You here for the job?" he asked, looking her up and down with the kind of assessment that made her straighten her spine. "Yes, sir. I can start today if you need me." He nodded, wiping his hands on a rag. "You ever waited tables before?" "Yes, sir." Back home in Louisiana, 3 years at a seafood place on Bourbon Street. It was half true. She had worked there for 6 months before Dion made her quit because he did not like her coming home smelling like shrimp and strangers. The man studied her for another moment, then shrugged. All right, I'm Vincent, the manager. Owner's name is Tony. He don't come in much during the day, but when he does, you stay sharp, you hear? He likes things done right. Mia nodded, relief flooding through her. Thank you. I promise I won't let you down. Vincent handed her a uniform. Black pants, white button-up shirt, black apron. You start tonight. 6 o'clock. Don't be late. That night, Mia worked her first shift at Venezia Trattoria. The place filled up fast, families and couples, and loud groups of men in expensive suits who ordered bottles of wine that cost more than her weekly paycheck. She moved through the chaos with muscle memory, balancing trays, memorizing orders, smiling even when her feet screamed and her back ached. It was near the end of the night when she first saw Tony Romano. He walked in through the back entrance, not the front, flanked by 2 men who looked they had been carved from the same stone. The entire staff shifted when he entered, the way a forest shifts when a predator moves through it. Vincent straightened his apron. The bartender, Lucia, set down the glass she was polishing and gave Tony a nod that looked more like a bow. Tony did not acknowledge any of them. He walked straight to the corner table, the one that always stayed empty no matter how busy the restaurant got, and sat with his back to the wall. His men took the seats on either side, blocking him from view of the front door. Mia watched from behind the bar, trying to understand what she was seeing. Tony was not loud. He did not demand attention, but everyone gave it to him anyway. Lucia leaned close to Mia and whispered, "That's the boss, Antonio Romano. You serve him, you don't ask questions, you don't make small talk, you do your job and you move on." "Who is he?" Mia asked. Lucia gave her a look that said she was either brave or stupid for asking. "Someone you don't want to cross. Now get back to work." Mia did not serve Tony that first night, but she felt his presence like a weight in the room. And when she walked out the back door at 2 a.m, exhausted and aching, she saw the black sedan idling at the curb and knew without being told that it belonged to him. She did not know then that 3 weeks later she would be sitting at his table, her bruises exposed, her secrets unraveling, and her entire life about to change in ways she could never take back. Would you have taken that job if you knew the man running the place could save you or destroy you with equal ease? Tony Romano learned early that fear and respect are 2 sides of the same coin, and the trick is knowing when to flip it. He was 16 the first time he watched his father kill a man. It happened in the back room of a butcher shop in Bay Ridge, the kind of place where the meat hanging in the window was only half the product being sold. The man, a low-level dealer who had been skimming from the family's take, begged on his knees while Tony's father, Carmine Romano, stood over him with a cleaver in one hand and a cigarette in the other. "You steal from me, you steal from my sons, you steal from our future," Carmine had said, voice calm as Sunday Mass. Then he brought the cleaver down. Tony did not flinch. He did not look away. His father had brought him there for that exact reason, to teach him that mercy was a luxury their world did not afford. Afterward, Carmine wiped the blood off his hands with a rag, turned to Tony and said, "You feel sick?" Tony shook his head. "Good, because this is the business. You want to eat, you get your hands dirty. You want to lead, you make sure everyone knows what happens when they cross you." Tony took that lesson and built an empire on it. By the time he was 30, he had taken over operations in 3 boroughs, expanded the family's reach into construction, waste management, and half the restaurants in Brooklyn. He was smart, strategic, and ruthless when he needed to be. But unlike his father, Tony understood something Carmine never did. Fear only lasts as long as the threat. Respect lasts longer. So Tony played both sides. He made sure people knew what he was capable of, but he also made sure they knew he took care of his own. The men who worked for him got paid well, got protection, got loyalty. In return, they gave him everything. Their silence, their obedience, their lives if it came to that. Venezia Trattoria was one of Tony's legitimate fronts, a family business passed down from his grandfather. It was clean, profitable, and untouchable by the feds because there was nothing illegal about serving the best ossobuco in Brooklyn. But it also served another purpose. It was neutral ground, a place where Tony could meet with other families, conduct business over wine and veal, and remind everyone that even in peace, he held the power. The restaurant had been struggling when Tony took it over 5 years ago. His cousin Vincent had been running it into the ground with bad management and worse food. Tony fired half the staff, brought in a new chef, and made it clear that Venezia was going to represent the Romano name the right way. Now it was always packed, always profitable, always watched. Tony spent most of his time at the restaurant in the evenings, handling business from his corner table while the rest of the city ate and laughed and lived their small, safe lives. He liked it that way, hidden in plain sight, surrounded by civilians who had no idea the man cutting into his steak had ordered a rival family's accountant to disappear just that morning. But Tony was not just a businessman. He was also a son, a brother, an uncle. He had a code, old-fashioned and uncompromising. Women and children were off limits. You did not hit someone who could not hit back. You did not disrespect family, and you never, ever hurt someone weaker than you just because you could. That code was why when Tony saw the bruise on Mia's wrist, something in him shifted. He had seen fear before, in the eyes of men who owed him money, in the faces of cops who knew better than to ask questions. But Mia's fear was different. It was not fear of him. It was fear of something else, something she carried with her like a second shadow. Tony did not know her story yet. He did not know where she came from or who had put those marks on her skin. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whoever it was, they had made a mistake. Because now Mia worked for him. And nobody touched what belonged to Tony Romano. He finished his wine, set the glass down, and made a decision. Frankie would dig into Mia's background quietly, carefully. If there was a problem, Tony would handle it. Not because he was soft, not because he cared about some waitress he barely knew, but because it was the principle of the thing. Because respect meant protecting your people. And because sometimes fear needed to be delivered to the right door. When a man who controls half the city decides you are worth protecting, does that make you safer, or does it just paint a bigger target on your back? The first night Mia worked at Venezia Trattoria, she thought the hardest part would be remembering the menu. She was wrong. It was a Friday, and the restaurant was packed by 7, every table full, every seat taken, the noise level rising with each round of drinks. Mia moved through the chaos with her notepad, taking orders, dodging elbows, balancing trays stacked with pasta dishes that steamed and smelled like heaven. She was serving a table near the front, 2 older couples celebrating an anniversary, when she felt the hand on her hip. It was firm, too familiar, squeezing just enough to make her freeze mid-step. She turned and found herself face to face with a man in his 40s, red-faced and grinning, his tie loosened and his breath heavy with whiskey. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, words slurring at the edges. "You come with the meal, or do I gotta order you separate?" His buddies laughed, loud and obnoxious, the kind of men who thought money bought them permission. Mia stepped back, pulling out of his grip, her professional smile locked in place even though her stomach turned. "Can I get you anything else, sir?" she asked, voice steady. The man leaned forward, invading her space. "Yeah, how about your number?" "I don't think so," Mia said, taking another step back. Her hands tightened on the tray. She had dealt with men like this before, handsy, entitled, used to getting what they wanted. The trick was to stay calm, stay polite, and get away fast. But the man did not let it go. He reached for her again, this time catching her wrist, the same one Dion had twisted 2 weeks ago. Pain shot up her arm, sharp and immediate. She gasped and the tray tilted in her other hand, plate sliding dangerously close to the edge. "Let go!" she said, voice harder now. Come on, baby, don't be like that. She said, let go. The voice came from behind her, low and cold, and the entire section went quiet. The man's grip loosened, his face draining of color as he looked past Mia to whoever had spoken. Mia turned and saw Tony standing there, hands in his pockets, expression calm, but eyes like black ice. The man released her wrist immediately, hands going up in surrender. Hey, Tony, I didn't mean nothing by it, just having some fun, you know? Tony did not respond right away. He stepped closer, close enough that the man had to tilt his head back to meet his eyes. You touch her again, Tony said quietly, and fun is the last thing you'll be having. Capiche? The man nodded fast, sweat beading on his forehead. Yeah, I got it. I'm sorry. He fumbled for his wallet, threw too much cash on the table, and motioned for his friends to get up. They left without finishing their food, weaving through the crowded restaurant toward the exit like their pants were on fire. Mia stood frozen, tray still in hand, unsure what just happened. Tony turned to her, and for a moment his expression softened. You all right? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Tony glanced at her wrist, the one the man had grabbed, and his jaw tightened. Vincent? He called over his shoulder. The manager appeared instantly, wiping his hands on his apron. Yeah, boss? Make sure that guy and his friends don't come back. Ever. Vincent nodded. Done. Tony looked back at Mia. You need a minute? She shook her head. No, I'm good. Thank you. He studied her for another beat, then nodded and walked back to his corner table. Mia stood there, heart still racing, trying to process what just happened. Around her, the restaurant slowly returned to normal, conversations picking back up, forks clinking against plates. But she could feel eyes on her, staff, customers, people who now knew she was under Tony Romano's protection, whether she wanted to be or not. Later that night, after the last table had been cleared and the kitchen staff had gone home, Vincent pulled Mia aside near the bar. Lucia was counting the register, pretending not to listen, but obviously listening. You did good tonight, Vincent said. Handled yourself well. Thank you, Mia said, exhausted down to her bones. Vincent hesitated, then lowered his voice. Listen, Tony, don't step in like that for just anybody. I don't know what he sees in you, but you got his attention now. That's good and bad. Good because nobody's gonna mess with you. Bad because... He trailed off, shaking his head. Just keep your head down, do your job, and don't ask questions. You'll be fine. Mia nodded, even though she did not feel fine. She felt like she had just stepped into something bigger than she understood, something that would not let her go, even if she wanted it to. As she walked out the back door into the cold October night, she saw the black sedan again, idling at the curb. This time, the window rolled down, and she caught a glimpse of Tony in the back seat, phone to his ear, face lit by the glow of the screen. He did not look at her, but she knew he knew she was there. She pulled her jacket tighter and walked toward the subway, Marcus waiting for her at the shelter, homework probably half done, stomach probably still hungry. She thought about Tony's question from earlier. You all right? And she thought about how long it had been since anyone asked her that and actually meant it. When someone powerful decides to protect you without asking, do you feel grateful or trapped? The nightmares came back that night, worse than they had been in weeks. Mia woke at 4 a.m, sweat soaking through her shirt, heart hammering, Dion's voice still echoing in her head. She sat up on the thin shelter mattress, pressing her palms against her eyes, trying to force the images away. Across the room, Marcus was still asleep, his breathing slow and even, his face peaceful in a way that made Mia's chest ache. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and walked to the small bathroom at the end of the hall. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. She stared at herself in the cracked mirror, taking inventory. The bruise on her wrist had faded to a sickly yellow-green. The one on her ribs, hidden under her shirt, was still purple. There were others, smaller, scattered across her body like a map of every time Dion had decided she needed to be reminded who was in control. She thought about Tony's face when he saw her wrist, the way his jaw had tightened, the way he had asked, "Who did that to you?" Like the answer mattered, like he could do something about it. But Mia had learned a long time ago that help came with strings. Dion had been charming at first, too, protective, attentive, always showing up when she needed him. Then the protection became control. The attention became obsession. And by the time she realized she was trapped, it was too late to get out without bloodshed. So when Tony offered her a seat at his table, when he asked questions she did not want to answer, she felt the same warning bell go off in her head. Men like Tony did not help for free. They collected debts, and debts in his world were paid in ways she could not afford. Still, she could not stop thinking about the way he had stepped in when that drunk man grabbed her. The way he had ended the situation with just a few words, no violence, no scene, just quiet authority. It had been so easy for him, and that ease scared her almost as much as it comforted her. When she got to work that evening, the restaurant was already buzzing with the early dinner crowd. Vincent greeted her with a nod, handing her a section near the back. "You got tables 12 through 16 tonight. Tony's coming in around 8, so keep that corner clear." Mia's stomach tightened. She had been avoiding Tony's table all week, taking shifts when he was not there, keeping her head down. But there was no avoiding him tonight. At 8:15, Tony walked in through the back entrance, same as always. This time, he was alone. No Frankie, no bodyguards, just him in a dark gray suit that fit like it had been tailored to his exact measurements. He moved through the restaurant like he owned it, which he did, and slid into his corner booth without looking at anyone. Lucia nudged Mia from behind the bar. "He asked for you specifically. Better get over there." Mia's pulse jumped. She grabbed her notepad, took a breath, and walked over to his table. Tony was reading something on his phone, thumb scrolling, expression unreadable. She stopped a respectful distance away and waited. After a moment, he looked up. "Mia, sit." "I'm working, Mr. Romano, and I'm telling you to sit. Vincent can cover your tables for 5 minutes. She hesitated, then slid into the seat across from him. The leather was cold under her legs, the booth too intimate for comfort. Tony set his phone down, folding his hands on the table. "You've been avoiding me." "No, sir. Just been busy." "Don't lie to me." His voice was not angry, just firm. "I asked you a question the other night. You didn't answer." Mia looked down at her hands. "I told you. I bumped into a door. And I told you I don't believe that." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Look, I don't know what your situation is. Well, I don't know what you're running from or who you're afraid of. But I do know this. You're working in my place now. That means you're under my roof. And under my roof, nobody gets hurt. Not by customers, not by strangers, not by anyone, you understand?" Mia met his eyes, and for the first time she saw something in them that did not look like calculation or control. It looked like honesty, raw, unfiltered honesty. "Why do you care?" asked, voice barely above a whisper. Tony sat back, considering the question. "Because I got a sister," he said finally. "And once, a long time ago, she showed up at my door with bruises she would not explain. I didn't push her. I didn't ask the right questions. And by the time I figured out what was happening, it was almost too late." He paused, his jaw working. "I'm not making that mistake again." Mia felt something crack inside her, a wall she had built brick by brick over the past 2 years. "His name is Dion," she heard herself say. "My ex, back in New Orleans. I left him 3 weeks ago, took my brother and just ran." Tony nodded slowly, absorbing this. "He know where you are now?" "No, at least I don't think so. I've been careful." "Good, keep it that way." He pulled a business card from his jacket pocket and slid it across the table. "That's my number. You see him, you hear from him, you even think he might have found you. You call me, day or night. doesn't matter. You call. Mia stared at the card, her name written in her own shaky handwriting on the back from when she had filled out her job application. I can't pay you back for this, she said quietly. Tony shook his head. I'm not asking you to. This isn't about money. This is about making sure you and your brother stay safe. That's it. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that someone could help without wanting something in return, but life had taught her otherwise. Still, as she picked up the card and slipped it into her apron pocket, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. Fragile, dangerous hope. When the most dangerous man you know offers to protect you and you realize you might actually need him to, where does that leave you? The text message comes through at 2 a.m, and Mia's blood turns to ice the second she reads it. Found you. 2 words. No name. No number she recognizes. Just those 2 words glowing on her phone screen in the darkness of the shelter room. Her hand shakes so badly she almost drops the phone. Marcus stirs in the bunk above her, mumbling something in his sleep, and she presses her palm over her mouth to keep from making a sound. She stares at the message, reading it over and over, trying to convince herself it is spam, a wrong number, anything except what she knows it is. But deep in her gut, in the place where fear lives permanently now, she knows. Dion found her. Her mind races through the possibilities. How did he get her number? She changed it when they left Louisiana. Did he track her through Marcus's school, through the shelter, through the restaurant? She had been so careful, paid for everything in cash, used fake names when she could, stayed off social media completely. But Dion had always been good at finding things, good at tracking her down when she tried to leave before, good at convincing people to tell him what he wanted to know, good at making her believe there was nowhere she could run that he would not follow. Mia's fingers hover over Tony's contact card in her phone. He told her to call if anything happened. Day or night, he said. But it is 2 a.m, and what is she supposed to say? That she got a text? That she is scared? That she needs help from a man she barely knows, a man whose help might cost more than she can pay? Before she can decide, another text comes through. You think you can hide from me? You think some shelter in Brooklyn makes you safe? I know where you work, Mia. I know where your brother goes to school. I know everything. Her stomach lurches. She stumbles out of bed, moves to the bathroom, and barely makes it to the toilet before she throws up. The fluorescent light burns her eyes. Her whole body shakes. She sits on the cold tile floor, phone clutched in her hand, and finally makes the call. Tony answers on the second ring, voice alert despite the hour. Mia? He found me. Her voice cracks, barely a whisper. Dion, he's texting me. He knows where I am. Silence on the other end, but not the empty kind. The thinking kind. Then Tony's voice comes back, sharp and focused. Where are you right now? At the shelter. Marcus is here with me. Stay there. Don't go anywhere. I'm sending someone to watch the building. You'll see a black SUV parked outside. That's Frankie. He's going to make sure nobody gets in who shouldn't. You understand? Mia nods, then realizes he cannot see her. Yes. Good. Now show me the texts. Take screenshots and send them to this number. Her fingers fumble with the phone, but she manages to capture the messages and send them. Within seconds, Tony responds. Got them. I'm making some calls. By morning, I'll know how he found you. In the meantime, you pack a bag. Light. Just what you and your brother need for a few days. You're not staying at that shelter anymore. Where are we going? Fear and relief war in her chest. Somewhere safe. Somewhere he won't find you. I got a place in Queens, a building I own, empty apartment on the 3rd floor. Clean, furnished, secure. You and Marcus move in tomorrow. Tony, I can't afford. I'm not asking you to pay rent, Mia. I'm telling you to take the apartment and keep yourself and your brother alive. We can talk about money later. Right now, survival is the only thing that matters. Tears burn her eyes, and she does not know if they are from fear or gratitude or exhaustion. Why are you doing this? Tony's answer is immediate. Because nobody threatens my people. And whether you want to be or not, you're my people now. Get some rest. Frankie's already on his way. The line goes dead. Mia sits on the bathroom floor, phone pressed to her chest, and tries to process what just happened. In the span of 5 minutes, her entire life shifted again. She went from hiding in a shelter, trying to be invisible, to being under the protection of a mafia boss who just promised to keep her safe from the man who has haunted her nightmares for 2 years. She thinks about the strings, the debts, the price she will eventually have to pay. But right now, with Dion's words still burning on her phone screen, she does not care. Right now, she just wants to survive. When Mia finally crawls back into bed, she looks out the small window and sees the black SUV pull up to the curb. Frankie steps out, lights a cigarette, and leans against the hood, his eyes scanning the street with the efficiency of someone who has done this 100 times before. For the first time in weeks, Mia closes her eyes and falls asleep without the nightmares waiting for her. If the only person who can save you from your past is someone who lives in the shadows, do you accept the help and risk becoming part of that darkness? Or do you face your demons alone? By the time the sun rises, Mia and Marcus are standing on a quiet street in Astoria, Queens, staring up at a 3-story brick building with window boxes full of dead flowers. Frankie unlocks the front door and leads them up the narrow staircase to the 3rd floor. The apartment is small but clean, 1 bedroom, a pull-out couch in the living room, a kitchen with a table that seats 2. The walls are painted a soft cream color and the floors are hardwood, scuffed but solid. It smells like lemon cleaner and fresh paint. "Bedroom's yours," Frankie says, nodding toward the closed door. "Kid can take the couch. I'll have someone bring sheets, towels, food, whatever you need. TV works. Internet's already set up. Code's on the fridge." Marcus drops his duffel bag on the floor and immediately heads to the window, pressing his face against the glass to see the street below. "This is ours?" he asks, disbelief clear in his voice. "For now," Mia says carefully, not wanting him to get too attached. She turns to Frankie. "When is Tony coming?" "Tonight. He's got business this morning, but he'll stop by after dinner. Wants to talk to you." Frankie hands her a key. "Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or Tony. You need something, you call." He scribbles a number on a scrap of paper and leaves it on the counter. After Frankie leaves, Mia and Marcus spend the morning unpacking the little they have. Marcus explores every corner of the apartment, opening cabinets, testing the shower, marveling at the fact that they have their own space for the first time since leaving New Orleans. Mia tries to share his excitement, but her mind keeps circling back to Dion's texts, to the way his words felt like hands around her throat even through a screen. At noon, there is a knock on the door. Mia freezes, her heart hammering. She peeks through the peephole and sees a young woman with a grocery bag in each arm. "Delivery from Tony," the woman calls out. Mia opens the door cautiously and the woman hands over the bags with a smile. "He said to make sure you got eggs, bread, and something for the kid. There's also some cash in the envelope at the bottom, for emergencies." Mia takes the bags, speechless. Inside she finds milk, cereal, pasta, sauce, chicken, vegetables, and an envelope with $500 in 20s. She stares at the money, her throat tightening. She has spent the last month scraping by on tips and shelter meals, and now there is more food in her kitchen than she has seen in months. Marcus appears at her elbow, eyes wide. "Is that real?" "Yeah, baby, it's real." That evening, Tony arrives just after 8. He is dressed more casually than she has ever seen him. Dark jeans, a black sweater, no tie. He looks around the apartment, checking the locks on the windows, testing the door, making sure everything is secure. Satisfied, he finally turns to Mia. "You settled?" "Yes. Thank you for all of this." Tony waves her off. "Don't thank me yet. We got work to do." He pulls out his phone and shows her a photo. It is a grainy image of a man standing outside Venezia Trattoria, taken from a security camera. The man is tall, lean, with a shaved head and a jacket too thin for the October cold. This him? Mia's breath catches. It is Dion. Older, harder looking than she remembers, but unmistakably him. Yes, that's him. When was this taken? Last night? Around 11? Then he was watching the restaurant, probably waiting to see if you came out. Tony pockets the phone. He's not being careful. That's good for us. Means he's acting on emotion, not strategy. Emotional people make mistakes. Mia wraps her arms around herself. What are you going to do? Tony meets her eyes, and there is something cold in his gaze now, something that reminds her exactly who he is. I'm going to make sure he understands that coming to my city, threatening my people, is the worst decision he's ever made. I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me. Too late for that. He hurt you. That's already one person too many. Tony's voice softens slightly. Look, I know you're scared. I know you think maybe you can just avoid him, lay low, hope he gives up and goes home. But men like him don't give up. They escalate, and I'm not going to sit around and wait for him to put his hands on you again. You with me? Mia hesitates, then nods. What do you need me to do? I need you to trust me, and I need you to stay here, stay safe, and let me handle this. Can you do that? She thinks about Dion's face, about the years of fear, about the way he made her feel small and powerless. And then she thinks about Tony standing in the restaurant, telling that drunk man to back off with nothing but his voice and his reputation. She thinks about the apartment, the food, the safety she has not felt in so long. I trust you, she says, and she means it. Tony nods. Good. Then this ends soon. He leaves without another word, and Mia locks the door behind him. She stands in the quiet apartment, Marcus already asleep on the couch, and wonders what this ends soon actually means. She wonders what Tony is planning, what he is capable of, and whether she will be able to live with the consequences. But more than anything, she wonders if she will finally be free. When you give a dangerous man permission to fight your battles, do you get to choose how the fight ends? Or does that choice belong to him now? Dion Laurent does not see the black sedan until it is too late. He is walking out of a motel in East New York, the kind of place that rents rooms by the hour and does not ask for ID. He spent the last 2 days tracking Mia, asking questions, greasing palms, following leads. He knows she works at some Italian place in Brooklyn. He knows she has a brother. He knows she thinks she can hide from him. But Dion has always been a patient man, patient and thorough. The sedan pulls up to the curb as he reaches for his car door. 2 men step out, both wearing dark coats, both moving with the kind of efficiency that makes Dion's hand instinctively reach for the knife in his pocket. But before he can pull it, one of the men is already behind him, arm locked around his throat, the other pressing a gun to his ribs. "Get in the car," the man with the gun says. His voice is calm, almost bored. Dion tries to struggle, but the arm around his neck tightens, cutting off his air. Black spots dance at the edges of his vision. He stops fighting. They shove him into the back seat, 1 man on either side, the driver pulling away from the curb before the door even closes. "Where are you taking me?" Dion demands, trying to sound tough, even though his heart is hammering. "Somewhere quiet," the man with the gun says. They drive for 20 minutes, leaving the city behind, heading toward the industrial docks near Red Hook. The streets are empty, the buildings abandoned, the only sound the hum of the engine and the distant call of seagulls. The car finally stops in front of a warehouse with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. They drag Dion out of the car and into the warehouse. Inside, the smell of rust and salt water fills the air. A single light hangs from the ceiling, swaying slightly, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. And standing in the center of the light is Tony Romano. Dion's stomach drops. He has heard the name before. Everyone in New Orleans who runs in certain circles has heard of the Romano family. But he never thought he would be standing in front of the man himself, zip-tied to a chair, blood dripping from his nose, where one of the men hit him for talking back. Tony steps forward, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. Dion Laurent, he says like he is reading a name off a grocery list. 32 years old, born and raised in New Orleans, works construction, got a record, 2 assaults, 1 domestic violence charge that got dropped because the victim refused to testify. Tony crouches down so they are eye level. That victim was Mia, wasn't it? Dion spits blood onto the floor. Who the hell are you? I'm the guy who's going to make sure you never touch her again. Tony stands, brushing off his pants. See, Dion, I got a problem. You came to my city. You threatened someone under my protection, and that's disrespectful. I don't like being disrespected. She's my girl, Dion says, voice shaking now despite his best effort to stay tough. We got history. This ain't your business. Tony laughs, but there is no humor in it. Your girl? She ran halfway across the country to get away from you. She changed her name, her number, her whole life. That doesn't sound like someone who wants you around. He leans in close, voice dropping to a whisper. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave New York tonight. You're going to go back to New Orleans, and you're never going to contact Mia again. No calls, no texts, no letters, nothing. You understand? Dion glares at him. And if I don't? Tony straightens, nodding to one of the men. The man steps forward and slams a fist into Dion's stomach, hard enough to double him over, gasping for air. That's a warning, Tony says. Next time it won't be a fist. It'll be something permanent. Dion coughs, tears streaming down his face. You can't do this. I'll go to the cops. And tell them what? That you stalked your ex-girlfriend across state lines and got your ass kicked for it? Good luck with that. Tony signals to the men, and they cut the zip ties. Dion collapses onto the floor, clutching his stomach. There's a bus leaving Port Authority at midnight. Be on it, because if I see you in this city again, you won't be leaving in one piece. They leave him there, curled up on the cold concrete, and drive away. Dion lies in the darkness, every breath agony, and for the first time in his life he understands what real fear feels like. Not the fear he inflicted on Mia. The fear of knowing someone more powerful than you has decided your fate. By midnight, Dion is on a bus heading south, a bag of ice pressed to his ribs, and a promise to himself that he will never come back to New York again. Tony makes a phone call on the drive back to the city. Mia answers on the first ring. It's done, he says simply. He's gone. He won't be back. There is silence on the other end, then a sound that might be a sob or a laugh or both. Thank you, she whispers. Don't thank me, Tony says. Just live your life. That's all the thanks I need. When someone takes care of your nightmares so you can finally sleep, do you owe them your loyalty? Or have they already claimed it without asking? The news spreads through Brooklyn like wildfire, whispered in corners of restaurants, bars, and back rooms, where people who know better than to ask questions still manage to learn everything. A man from out of town came looking for trouble. He found it, and Tony Romano made sure he left with a message carved into his memory. No one knows the details, no one ever does, but the story is enough. Enough to remind people why the Romano name still carries weight. Enough to make people think twice before crossing him. At Venezia Trattoria, business picks up. New customers come in, regulars bring friends, and every table is full by 7 each night. Vincent grins behind the bar, counting receipts that are fatter than they have been in months. Nothing like a little reputation maintenance to bring in the crowds, he mutters to Lucia, who just rolls her eyes and pours another drink. Mia hears the whispers. She sees the way people look at her now, not with pity, but with caution. She is the waitress Tony Romano protected, the one he went to war for, in his own quiet way. Some people admire her for it. Others avoid her, afraid to get too close to someone tied to a man like Tony. But Mia does not care what they think. For the first time in 2 years, she wakes up without fear sitting on her chest. She walks Marcus to school without looking over her shoulder every 5 seconds. She sleeps through the night without nightmares. Dion is gone, and even though she knows the peace she feels comes at a price, she cannot bring herself to regret it. One evening, 2 weeks after Dion disappeared, Mia is cleaning tables after the dinner rush when a woman in an expensive coat walks in. She is older, maybe mid-50s, with silver hair pulled into a neat bun and eyes that have seen too much. She asks for Tony, and Vincent points her toward the corner booth. Mia watches from a distance as the woman sits with Tony, their conversation low and serious. At one point, the woman pulls out a folder and slides it across the table. Tony opens it, flips through the pages, then closes it and hands it back. The woman stands, shakes his hand, and leaves without ordering food. Later that night, after the restaurant closes, Tony calls Mia over to his table. "Sit." She sits, exhausted and curious. "Who was that woman?" "A lawyer. She handles certain things for me, paperwork mostly. Legal things." He slides an envelope across the table. "This is for you." Mia opens it and finds a lease agreement for the apartment in Queens. Her name is on it. The rent is listed as $1 per month. Her eyes widen. "Tony, I can't." "You can, and you will. The apartment's yours, paid for, as long as you need it. I also set up a savings account for your brother, for college or whatever he needs. There's $5,000 in it to start." Mia's throat closes up. She cannot speak. Tears blur her vision, and she wipes them away quickly, embarrassed. "Why?" she finally manages. "Why are you doing all this?" Tony leans back, considering his answer. "Because you remind me of my sister, and because I got the power to help. So why wouldn't I?" He pauses, his expression softening. "You think I want something from you. I can see it in your face. You think there's going to be a day when I come to you and say, 'Remember what I did for you? Now it's time to pay up.' But that's not how this works. I don't help people so they owe me. I help people because it's the right thing to do." Mia stares at him, trying to understand. "But you're a criminal?" Tony finishes, a wry smile on his face. "Yeah, I am. I break laws. I hurt people who deserve it. I run an empire built on things your brother shouldn't know about. But that doesn't mean I don't have a code. And my code says you protect the people who can't protect themselves. So that's what I did." Mia nods slowly, the weight of his words settling over her. "What if Dion comes back?" "He won't. But if he does, I'll handle it again and again, as many times as it takes. You don't need to be afraid anymore, Mia. That part of your life is over." She wants to believe him, and for the first time she thinks maybe she can. As she walks out of the restaurant that night, Marcus waiting for her at the apartment with his homework spread across the kitchen table, she feels something she has not felt in years: freedom. Real, solid, unshakable freedom. But in the back of her mind, a small voice whispers a question she cannot ignore. If Tony can protect her from Dion, what happens when someone comes for Tony? When your protector is the most dangerous man in the city, do you feel safe? Or do you just feel like you are standing too close to a fire that could burn everything down? 6 months later, Mia stands in front of the mirror in her apartment, adjusting the collar of her blouse, and barely recognizes the woman staring back at her. She has gained weight, the healthy kind that comes from eating regular meals and sleeping through the night. Her hair is longer, styled instead of just pulled back. The bruises are gone, every single one. And in their place is something she thought she had lost forever: confidence. Marcus is thriving. He's doing well in school, made the basketball team, and talks about college like it is a real possibility instead of a distant dream. The apartment in Queens is home now, filled with their things, their routines, their laughter. Mia still works at Venezia Trattoria, but she also started taking night classes at the community college. Pre-law, She has not told Tony yet, but she thinks he already knows. He has a way of knowing things. Tonight is different, though. Tonight, Tony invited her to a private dinner at the restaurant after closing, just the two of them. She does not know what it is about, but the invitation felt important. When she arrives, the place is empty except for Tony sitting at his usual corner booth, 2 plates of food already on the table. He stands when he sees her, gesturing to the seat across from him. "Thanks for coming." "Of course." She sits, nerves fluttering in her stomach. "What's this about?" Tony picks up his wine glass, swirling the red liquid. "I wanted to check in, see how you're doing, really doing." "I'm good. Better than good, actually. Marcus is happy. I'm back in school. We're stable." "Good." Tony nods, looking genuinely pleased. "You earned it. You took the help I gave you and built something real with it. Most people don't do that. They just coast. But not you." Mia smiles, warmth spreading through her chest. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Maybe, but you did the hard part. You showed up. You kept going. That's all you." He sets his glass down, his expression turning serious. "I need to tell you something, though, and I need you to listen." Her smile fades. "Okay. There are people in my world, people who don't like the way I do business. They think I'm getting soft because I help people like you. They think it makes me weak, and weak men don't last long in this life." He pauses, measuring his words. "There's a chance that someone might come after me, might try to hurt me by hurting the people I care about. I don't think it'll happen. I got good people watching my back, but I need you to be aware, just in case." Mia's stomach tightens. "Are you in danger?" "I'm always in danger. Comes with the job. But I don't want you to worry. I just want you to be smart. Keep your eyes open. If you see anything strange, you call me. Same as before." She nods, fear creeping back in. "What about Marcus?" "He's fine. I got people watching him too. Discreet. He won't even know they're there. But nobody's touching that kid, I promise you." Mia takes a shaky breath. "I thought this was over. I thought we were safe." "You are safe. From Dion, from your past, from all of that. This is different. This is my world bleeding into yours. And I'm sorry for that. But I need you to trust that I got this under control." She meets his eyes, searching for reassurance, and finds it. Tony has never lied to her, never made promises he could not keep. If he says he has it under control, she believes him. They finish dinner in relative silence, the weight of the conversation hanging between them. As Mia gets up to leave, Tony stands and walks her to the door. "You're going to be okay, Mia? You and Marcus both? I made sure of that." "I know," she says, and she does. But as she walks out into the cold December night, pulling her coat tight against the wind, she cannot shake the feeling that the peace she has found is temporary. That somewhere out there the fire Tony warned her about is already burning, and it is only a matter of time before it reaches them. She thinks about her life 6 months ago, broken, terrified, hiding in a shelter with nowhere to go, and she thinks about her life now, stable, hopeful, building toward a future she can see. Tony gave her that. He saved her. But what happens when the man who saved you needs saving too? What happens when the fire comes and you are the only one close enough to pull him out? Mia does not have the answer yet, but as she unlocks the door to her apartment and hears Marcus laughing at something on TV, she knows one thing for certain. Whatever comes next, she will not run. Not this time. Because Tony taught her something more valuable than safety. He taught her how to fight back. And if the time comes when he needs her, she will be ready. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the power of protection, redemption, and the complicated nature of loyalty, drop a comment below and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Mia's place? Would you have accepted Tony's help, or would you have walked away? Your voice matters, and your story could inspire someone else who is going through their own battle. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter of courage, strength, and the fight for a better life. Let's keep telling the stories that remind us we are never truly alone. What will you do when your past comes knocking? Will you face it, or will you let someone else fight your battles? Share your answer in the comments, and let's inspire each other to be brave when it counts most.